trash talk between the two players. It's gonna be great.
Okay, if you guys have not been paying attention, by the way, so at the beginning of this, people were asking my predictions, and I was saying I could see Gypsy in the number 1 slot. That was like everybody's general agreement. I could see Jaeyun up there, Striker up there, and potentially Artosis as well. Up right in corner, we got Jaeyun starting as the teal Protoss bottom. By the way, bottom left-hand corner, Artosis as that hot pink Terran. But Artosis has seemed to have Jaeyun's number in this matchup over at least a lot of their latter games. Now, it is possible that Jaeyun has just been playing mind games with him ever since this LAN was announced to get him in a situation to just practice and do that sort of thing where he's going to play the mind game sort of thing. And I wouldn't put that past Jaeyun. And I will say Jaeyun is one of those guys where if you play him 5 or 6 times, by the time you play him the 7th time, he's going to figure you out. But I will say, I don't know, I've been paying attention to this matchup in particular in anticipation of this event. And at least, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 ladder matches where they've met, Artosis has been the victor.
Yeah, Jaeyun really thrives off the game outside the game. He'll do exactly what you're talking about. He'll kind of say something or play a game to lower your guard, but deep down he's got something planned. It's very interesting. We're gonna see what Jaeyun has in store. He's told me he's prepared builds for this tournament, specifically against Terran. So we'll see what kind of crazy thing he has planned out here.
So yeah, I have to assume that Jaeyun's got some sort of standard build or some sort of off build to figure out. Right now though, everything looking standard. He's got pylon gateway, assimilator to start, very normal stuff. Artosis going for the barracks alongside the command center defense to work against zealots. Interestingly enough though, Jaeyun not moving out and opting to go for an early game gas steal, which has to make Artosis feel pretty good. Usually that is something that's free for Protoss on this map, which is one of the reasons that Artosis was complaining, but it looks like Jaeyun opting not to go for those early game shenanigans.
Artosis is delaying his gas though. Is he going for maybe a Rax expand off of this? Kind of an atypical build on this map, especially since with 2-player maps you're more prone to cheese since they know your strength position at the very beginning of the game. But he might be going for this really economic build that could put him ahead to start the game off.
So right now, Probe fought, and maybe, yeah, and this is kind of clever. So I'm wondering if Artosis intentionally moved his SCV out for that timing to engage this probe initially, to also distract it from scouting, so that he might be able to, yeah, he's going to go for it. This is a very off economic build. So going for 18 command center off a single Marine to follow this up before Jaeyun was showing indications of going any sort of, so skipping the factory, just going straight racks into command center here, before Jaeyun was showing any indications of early aggression or anything along those lines. So, and also it looks like Jaeyun skipped that first zealot, so I don't know that he's really going to be able to punish this.
Artosis out mind game Jaeyun right now, because Jaeyun kind of assumed that Artosis wouldn't go with this build given the prevalence of cheese and, like I said before, knowing where your opponent's starting position is. But Artosis kind of did the reverse mind game of that and says, hey, I think you're not going to cheese me, so I'm going to go with this riskier but very economic build despite that. And it's going to pay off really quick in the next few minutes.
This is oftentimes while you will see Protoss opting for and actually check and find it, and that's got to be frustration for Jaeyun off the bat, and probably will trigger a more rapid third. But you can see Artosis already has sent out another SCV ahead of this as well. The Dragoon is in a race to maybe take out that SCV, and actually has already anticipated this. Look at that foot race. He's like, okay, I gotta go ahead and find that SCV and take it out. The nice anticipation on Jaeyun to recognize the positioning. That was a serious mind read right there. He's like, okay, I know Artosis has sent out another scout because he's going to want to confirm the follow-up and maybe check position on the third. And so really getting a lot of damage. Did confirm that there was a natural expansion going up, but that could have been a lot worse with that SCV out in the field. Could have confirmed a potential third base and a natural expansion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, Jaeyun right now is probably gonna try to go for a probably fast shuttle into Reaver. He knows he's a bit behind economically, so he can try to equalize that by going for some harass. So going for that shuttle Reaver before Observer. But meanwhile, Artosis is going for that factory into really fast second factory, and could be pushing out with the 3 tank push that kind of muddies the waters on what to do.
I would, I mean, it looks like there's going to be the double machine shop drop. I would be a bit surprised to see Jaeyun go for anything aside from a 4-gate or any. Really, he just likes playing straight up economic. And for whatever reason, Artosis plays really, really well against that style, either from going mid-game 2-1 pushes or off-timing pushes, or just having some sort of positional play after that. Looks like he is grabbing that second gas. He's just sitting, looks like, on that 2 machine shop, 2 factory style for the mid-game, but in a really strong economic position here to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the scary things with that push, that 3 tank timing push, is that you can really overwhelm the Protoss army because your production is ramped up so much faster with your rack CC. So sometimes Protoss like to get even a 3rd extra gateway for some extra production to be safe against that 3 tank push. But it looks like Jaeyun's just going to be sticking with 2 gateways. It's certainly viable to defend against that, but it's difficult. So we'll see how this plays out.
So checking out, making sure there's not a mine at the 12 o'clock, and now moving that probe up, and yeah, it looks like it's just going to be 2 gate into that 3rd base. Jaeyun anticipating potentially a vulture drop or something along those lines. It looks like he's got some Dragoons fanned out to the north, so anticipating everything. He's also got a Dragoon sitting near that natural. In the meantime, Artosis is tacking on 2 additional factories.
Man.
So this is actually a very, very strong style of play, where you have the 4 factories. It gives you a lot of flexibility because you just can produce a lot of units. You can start pushing up. You can flood a whole bunch of attacks, or you can go ahead and fold back, and even if your attack fails, you can produce a lot of units behind it where it's not an emergency situation. You can still seal up a 3rd.
Yeah. Also, you can see what you're saying is playing out. This is terrifying, actually. From a pro's perspective, this is terrifying, especially if you have only 2 gateways. If you look at Jaeyun's Dragoon count, it's probably got 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it's 8 versus what? 5 tanks and 3 Marines, but also just vultures just gonna flood in. Oh my goodness! Oh my gosh! So yeah, this Dragoon count certainly can stand up to this tank count, but what's really scary is going to be the vulture flood that's going to come by. That's going to try to run by the Dragoons and get into the Jaeyun's base. So it creates a very chaotic situation. Artosis is just trying to organize his army a little bit here, deciding on what to do and how to proceed, because it's a little bit harder to push up that ramp. But here we go. Here's exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, the vultures don't get by. Oh, they do get by, and they laid out some mines, and man, okay, this is really good for Jaeyun. The Dragoons have the high ground, so they're there to just demolish the tanks.
So the mine's down. There's 3 siege tanks remaining. This isn't complete emergency mode for Artosis, but it looks like he's still going to try to fight this. He's still barreling on. More vultures and more siege tanks continuing, but now just down to 2 remaining. And at this stage, I was going to think he might want to back up from here, but no, continuing. Wants to try to get all of the trades, now finally backing off with the final 2 siege tanks. There's a couple mines in the way, but also an observer line. More vultures running forward. Is Artosis going to continue with this? Here's the thing, he doesn't have to dedicate to this. He can go ahead and peel back and continue to macro up from there. Right now, though, Jaeyun all of a sudden with a 20 supply lead now Artosis holding short. He's got that 12 o'clock base up and running. He's got a nice pylon seal right there. So in a pretty good situation, was able to stymie that attack. That definitely slowed down a 3rd from Artosis, and on top of that, that took resources out of getting some of those additional more stereotypical upgrades.
Artosis is running behind, though. He might run into the base unless Jaeyun has something to block. He is blocking the 12 o'clock. But okay, so he kind of gambled, and looks like he's not going to be able to run into JY's base, our main base.
Kind of curious about that turret, if that was just a fake to try to force a little bit more of an emergency dedication, as though there were siege tanks in position, but the siege tanks have already pulled all the way back to the natural expansion. The Dragoons slowly making their way through that mine line, and it looks like a Reaver finally out in the field. A dud initially, but that is definitely going to send those vultures fleeing, and that's now a protected 3rd from Jaeyun, and that's exactly what he wanted to seal. And usually this would be more, and +1 starting very, very late. So it's going to be a very late +1 for Artosis, which means Jaeyun's units and economy are going to be pretty solid for him.
Great observation, and also it's going to be a late third base too, since he's dedicated so many resources to this timing attack that really didn't pan out. I'm not so sure about this run by though. Okay, looks like it's working out very well. I gotta go back and give some props to Jaeyun in that defense. Normally and you know, credit, part of it is also just the architecture of the map, where the ramp does allow for better defense against those tanks. But Jaeyun definitely microed that beautifully and was able to really hold out that timing push.
The Reaver still being it looks like the turret was taken out, a little bit of vision harassment. So that a lot of additional lost mining time for Artosis at the main is going to have to resaturate that. That's going to slow down that third even further. These vultures for Artosis have to be active for him, but he doesn't have a lot of locations to attack. That 12 o'clock base has that pylon wall. Yeah, that left pylon's defended, but there's Dragoons fairly nearby. There's a pretty decent pylon seal at the natural, and Jaeyun now has a macro lead. If he wanted to shift into Gateway Man, especially considering that +1 weapons is going to be so delayed, he could decide to do so because of that over-dedication of that attack earlier from Artosis. But right now, yeah, Jaeyun with a fantastic lead and is really in a strong position.
Yeah, Gypsy doesn't, excuse me, Artosis doesn't even have his third base up yet. And while Jaeyun's already taking that fourth base, really accelerating his game plan and gonna take the rest of the map and take a really dominating position.
This is where previously Jaeyun would falter against this with Artosis, but right now Artosis needs to make some sort of magical move. He's starting to, I think this is a maneuver just to try to seal up that 9 o'clock base. So moving along that side artifact, some Reavers from the opposite side going to be able to make, thought he was going to be able to pick off a siege tank. Wanted to get that second Scarab shot off, isn't quite able to, so Jaeyun doing what he can to try to provide some delay. Lost a Reaver right there, and there is a Goliath that's going to shove the rest of this away, is going to be able to escape, so able to at least cap that. But this is, his third is coming up probably later than Jaeyun's fourth, and usually you want to be ahead of that, and the +1 weapons still not finished, and we're going past the 12 minute mark now.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of an all-in from Artosis at this point, because he's not playing for the late game with the third, he's not playing for the late game with the upgrades. He has to attack now before Jaeyun reaches a power spike with higher tech or upgrades of his own. So he's really needing to make this attack work here. He's beautifully cutting off. Oh my gosh, he got the Reaver off though. And he kills the Reaver. Okay.
Some probes creating some problems as they're reinforcing, but Artosis with a nice defensive line actually might be able to breach 2 locations. If he can take both of these bases out, they'll be right back in it. But so Jaeyun now pushing up the bus. This is a funnel, however, and there's vultures right in the way. The observer's now pressing forward, and it looks like I'm not sure how that Zealot got behind, but it looks like a Zealot behind. They are getting started on the siege line. Does Jaeyun have enough to punch through? The Dragoons continuing to press in. The Zealots getting on top of the siege tanks, and it looks like Artosis is going to be able to hold and moving some more vultures to reinforce.
This is so difficult. Artosis is in such a good position because of the features of this map. This is just so hard to break from Jaeyun's point of view, because that area, it just funnels, like you said, it funnels the units in, so Jaeyun can't get a good solid concave to surround Artosis' units. And already Artosis is going to do some really insane damage with the vulture run by, and are killing so many probes.
So for a moment, Jaeyun has an economic lead and might be able to produce some additional. Oh, that's not going to help. Losing a lot of units to mines, just trying to barrel through. He can't wait, so he's trying to push through. He's going to get the siege tanks on the low ground, but is he going to be able to save the Nexus? He's lost all the probes, which is resetting him to basically 3 bases. But is he going to be able to push the rest of this out before that Nexus is finished? A lot of mines on the way. The observers are there. The Dragoons are marching up. The Zealots aren't able to mine clear and accidentally mine drag into their own units. Some vultures also trying to cut off reinforcements to make it a little bit more difficult. And this Nexus is plummeting in health. Probes finally transferring out to that 11 o'clock location, but it looks like Jaeyun is giving up the defense as more vultures starting to press forward. And yeah, that Nexus is going to be gone by the time the units are able to go up there and take care. So nice job on Artosis' part to stay in this match, but at the same time, he still only has 2 bases. He hasn't grabbed a third as of yet. And this might even things up, moving up and getting some additional probe kills with those vultures at that 11 o'clock position.
Artosis playing so well right now. He his multitasking is on a different level at the moment. He laid the necessary mines in the third base to take some hits while he was taking out the third nexus, and he had the wherewithal to mine up the bottom part of the base of outside the third as well, and also harass that fourth base. That being said, JY does have his fourth base up and running, but meanwhile, and a fifth base, even though his third was taken out.
So,
Man.
clever maneuver on Jaeyun's part, recognizing that Artosis is yet to take his third. He went ahead and expanded bottom right and let Artosis expend a lot of troops. So he took out that base. He's like, go ahead and take it. I'm just going to expand someplace else. That's a challenge to take. And now all of a sudden he's got a 40 supply lead and is moving out with Reavers once again to disrupt Artosis as he's trying to take that third.
Yeah, that was a beautiful move by Artosis to move out, but unfortunately Jaeyun just got ahead a little bit too early for Artosis to fully capitalize on it. And now Jaeyun's gonna delay Artosis' third mining for a long time now with those two Reavers and a shuttle.
SCVs look like they're going to be able to sneak in. Reaver is still somewhat nearby, but able to take out that Goliath, and there aren't siege tanks in position, so turning right back around, also able to halt that turret. So SCVs once again evacuating. This is again slowing down additional economic pushes from Artosis, and Jaeyun running off 4 bases and re-grabbing that 12 o'clock as his fifth. He's in a solid spot here.
And Artosis needed to find that timing to kill Jaeyun, but even though he killed the third, Jaeyun still his macro machine is still on full force with those bases with his fourth and his fifth in the bottom. So yeah, it's gonna be a hard spot for Artosis to come through, especially with the delayed upgrades.
Yeah, the delayed upgrades are really gonna hurt him as it's starting to, especially as you start seeing some more support units in, and just the large gateway count behind this.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how Jaeyun's gonna approach the rest of the game. Attacking into that third is still really difficult despite his economic and army advantage. It's just a really awkward angle to attack through. So Artosis, oh my gosh, okay. So Artosis has some guerrilla warfare units attacking the base. Meanwhile, Jaeyun is going to engage the main base, or the main army of Artosis, and try to take down that third to really put the nail in the coffin here.
So Artosis is able to strike bottom right, however, might end up paying for it by losing his third, and right now his main has mined out. This is a critical base to hold. Some Reavers holding off, some getting some huge hits on the siege tanks there. They're gonna try to pile up, but looks like the Dragoon's going to engage between the Reavers. If he gets another shot off, honestly, I was looking for another Scarab to go ahead and take another hit, because that might have been it for the siege tank. So bottom right falls, but the 9 o'clock base is bleeding SCV. Well, never mind, some duds. I'm not sure how that was a dud, but a lot of siege tanks have died. Supplies have reset both directions, and let's see if Jaeyun's able to macro right back out of this, though.
Oh my gosh, this is insane. It's incredible that Artosis saved his third base. He lost a big portion of his army. Jaeyun still has his fourth up, but he might have his main. He lost his fifth base too. So that was a really incredible move by Artosis, really shutting down a big piece of Jaeyun's economy here.
So supply counts are even, +1 weapons, +1 armor. +1 weapons actually on Jaeyun, so upgrades about even actually. So the armies are going to trade more efficiently than you would expect for this late stage of the game as far as just heads-up units versus heads-up units. Looks like the shuttle diving in trying to get something else happening. But yeah, Jaeyun actually needs to grab additional base. Artosis might want to grab additional base himself as well.
Yeah, and this is actually looking really good for Artosis now, because he's just going to slowly push up and take that fourth base. And when Terran takes that fourth base, it's near impossible for us to bust that area because of the narrow chokes. And then what Terran will do is just slowly push and dominate their half of the map and just take it from there. Would be really interested to see what plan Jaeyun has in store. At this point in the game, you want higher tech units, including maybe Reavers, but definitely Storm, maybe Arbiter, probably Carrier, it just depends, but you definitely need at least one of them.
Looks like he has 2 shuttles that are active to try to counter this. Actually, 3 shuttles, I should say, and that Reaver continue to try to harass the front. Kind of playing Snow-esque here. and just doing what he can to just get some bonus value. And this is going to be particularly important as it is looking like it's going to be an economically close game. Observers moving up to go ahead and sweep through a lot of mines here. I'm not sure why Artosis decided to abandon the 10 o'clock position. Maybe he just didn't like it. Instead, looks like instead he wants to take bottom right. And I like that. I like that play from Artosis. Rather than expanding into Jaeyun, where Jaeyun can kind of funnel around and do some sneaky things and get harassed with the Reavers, instead make your way bottom right, turret up that direction, and kind of split the map diagonally instead of horizontally. Good play. The gateways, we'll see if they're silent for a while, because we got, what, 1 base, 2 bases running for Jaeyun, and not a lot of prospects on a third. In the meantime, Artosis does have a command center built to maybe try to land there, but can build the bottom right on site. Right now, it looks like Artosis, as far as the follow-up into the late game, unless Jaeyun takes some of these holdings out or assaults some position, this is some mech in the way, he's just going to run away with this economically. Yeah.
Artosis masterfully is coming back into this game after being at a huge deficit in the mid game. He took down some Jaeyun's huge economic components, and now he has the freedom to expand in both areas, because Jaeyun is pressured to have his army on one side of the map, but that frees Artosis to expand on the other side. So as you can see, he's gonna expand on that bottom right base that he is, but even then, Terran doesn't need a lot to defend this area that we're seeing here. So he could expand in both areas too, which makes a very high pressure situation for Protoss. You never want to be in this situation as Protoss.
So Artosis now has options to take the 10 o'clock as well, but he's already got, looks, a single Zealot making its way into that bottom right. Maybe he can just float. Okay, it's already in the air is what's happening there. Command center making its way. The Zealot was taken care of. Not a lot of defense bottom right. There are a lot of mines in between, but yeah, as Zen was saying, Jaeyun has the troublesome prospect of, okay, he needs to defend the holdings top left, which means what is he going to do about bottom right? Looks like Jaeyun also going to try to expand bottom right as well to get, so that this is turning into a diagonal map split. In a diagonal map split, to win as Protoss, oftentimes you want to be 1 base up, which is not the case currently, although looks like Jaeyun is going to be able to sweep up, take these siege tanks. Ooh, big drops!
Huge drops!
At the 10 o'clock, able to wipe out the forward siege tanks, and more units coming in from the right. There's still 3 siege tanks to the rear and a lot of vultures, but a good amount of Psystorm as well.
Oh! Amazing storms. You know, they didn't quite connect, but that's exactly what they needed. There were so many vultures that they cleaned the dropping zealots so quickly, but he needed the storms to clean that up, and it looks like JY is standing a chance to clear this mining base out, which is great news for Protoss.
So clearing this out, see if the siege tanks hold. Dropping the side storms, clearing this out, big win, absolutely vital. It's going to be lifeblood right here, and it looks like we have 2 more zealots that are going to be able to clear out bottom right. So now all of a sudden Artosis reset, where I was about to say he's in a really nice economic position, all of a sudden reset and does that. Looks like the High Templar escapes. The Reaver does not. I'm not sure if that shuttle is going to be able to get in or not. More siege tanks moving up. You can see how important this base is to Artosis, just tossing all sorts of units to retake it and hold it. But nice attacks from Jaeyun all over the place. He's able to disrupt bottom right. It looks like Artosis is not lifting it up. This is not yet mining for Jaeyun, but he's got a lot of prospects here. He's secured top left. He's got 11 o'clock. He's still mining at 12 o'clock. He's got bottom right where he could start mining there, and where it looks like it was a flip scenario of what we were talking about 3 minutes ago, where Jaeyun all of a sudden is going to have the Powers economy and be able to make a really good position to the late game. Is going to have to stop this, though, as Artosis moving up siege tanks at the top left.
Man, Jaeyun was masterful earlier. He stopped 2 bases all at once, basically. That takes so much wherewithal to pull that off, but at the same time, Artosis barely held on to that base that he's defending right now. So Jaeyun really desperately wants to take the space away from Artosis. It's pretty much a win condition for either player at this point.
We're going to see a lot of fighting in the upper left-hand corner as Jaeyun needs to defend the top left and Artosis wants to defend the 10 o'clock. Bottom right looks like it was. Did it lift off? It's lifted off. It's not yet burning. It's going to be very challenging for either Jaeyun or Artosis to do anything about that, but there's a probe chance for making its way to that bottom right-hand corner, so that'll be additional base on top of it. Jaeyun starting to feel the pressure here, top left, as the siege tanks slowly making another defense. A shuttle looking for maybe a Mind Drag, Sweep Location, or their High Templar with this to drop a
nice.
Storm.
Very nice.
Just Zealots.
Ooh, and that was a sick defense matrix too. Oh my god, the Mind Drags are amazing. He's getting so much value to killing these tanks. The one thing I would say that works in Jaeyun's favor with the strategy is that with Speed Shuttle, it gets much more difficult to pull off once Terran reaches higher supply counts. But Jaeyun's doing a masterful job in keeping Artosis' supply down, so it makes it still efficient for him to use Speed Shuttle as a strategy.
This really feels like the late stages of a boxing match where the players are just slugging it out to see who's going to get first, because this is just continual attacks both directions to the top left and the 10 o'clock base. Artosis now able to finally get position, the probe line taking some damage right there as the Vulture is pecking away at them on retreat. But it looks like that base is going to be taken out of Jaeyun's hands. He does have another base up, but Artosis, all of a sudden, he's got 2 bases. He's in a position where he could take top left if he wants to grab that additional base. He's not that far behind in supply, and now the upgrades are starting to fill in. He's got level 3 weapons, level 2 armor.
All in a in what seems like a blink of an eye, Artosis is now 2-3 in the late stage, in the scary stages of TVP. Gonna see how Jaeyun's gonna try to respond. I think he's lost a little bit of momentum going into the game now since he couldn't quite break that base. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he's gonna still try to kind of shove his way in, or if he's gonna go for a tech switch in some sort of way. Meanwhile, looks like Artosis is trying to harass these bond bases so that they can't be taken by Jaeyun. So that is helpful for Artosis there.
Dropping a lot of mines, that's going to make the shuttle drops a little bit more challenging. Jaeyun piling in a lot of units, but there's already, I don't see any observer nearby, and I see a lot of mines. Artosis is doing a good job of getting out of the way of the mine drags. You can see Jaeyun just sending up a single zealot at a time to try to clear the mines ahead of time, so you can allow the rest of the dragoons to go up. And clearing out doing a pretty good job of clearing out the way. Finally, the dragoons able to get up. That was very patient, and a huge mine drag clearing that out. So it looks like he is going to be able to finally secure bottom right.
In doing so, he still killed a lot of zealots in that process. He did lose a lot of vultures, but definitely took some zealots with them. I wonder if Artosis feels the pressure now to try to push that base. I take that back. I think he's happy to take that 4th base that he's taken and then secure that top left position. Meanwhile, even if Jaeyun takes those bottom 2 left bases, Terran just has so much cost effectiveness with their army that, oh my gosh, 2 double dropships with 4 tanks, and they're going to take down the Nexus of Jaeyun here.
So another Nexus going down. That was, I keep saying these are critical bases for either player to hold, but and it is the case. But just one siege tank sacrificing itself, it looks like, to allow the rest of the siege tanks out. That was a huge takedown. So that's putting Jaeyun back to 3 bases versus Artosis' 2. Artosis still hasn't expanded top left. He maybe wants designs on that base himself. The supply counts are actually very, very close for this stage. One problem for Jaeyun is he's mostly been using shuttles at this stage. I haven't seen any arbiters out. I see a Stargate in position, but still no arbiters out in the field. He does have +3 weapons, but that's still, he's going to have to basically rely on just some fantastic engagements and positions to win these fights. If he's moving into Artosis at an already established position, it's going to be very difficult to pull anything out. And the one thing that is working in Jaeyun's favor, though, I feel like it is more up to Artosis to take 1 additional base and to deny this bottom right-hand corner. So basically, as Protoss, you want to split the map and go +1 up. So here's the +1 in theory if Jaeyun can either deny or hold this top left. That's as it's playing out right this second. If you get favorable trades on top of that. And I do believe that Jaeyun's been getting pretty favorable trades across the board.
He has been, but as the game goes on and Terran ups their supply count, it makes it much, much harder to get favorable trades. And Artosis is actually going to try to take down the space once again. It's going to get so many probes. This is actually really huge. I don't think JY is going to be able to defend in time. He feels like he has to, which is absolutely understandable, but Artosis already established himself in a really crazy good position here. This is going to be really hard to defend from Jaeyun's point of view.
Yeah, he has to engage into this funnel. Does have Psy Storms, however.
6 storms.
On that edge, able to soften up those siege tanks. trying to push in with the rest, but again, this is just not the best engagement point. Jaeyun
No.
scattering back, it's where the splash damage gets maximized, and as a result, the Vulture's able to sneak in. That's enough Vultures to take out, even without the Siege Tank support, to take down those Photon Cannons and to wipe out the rest of this Nexus.
He ran out of Zealots, so he couldn't proceed with that attack there. He only got one Storm off, unfortunately, with that shuttle there.
I was hoping he had like one or more, a few more High Templar in there, because if he had dropped some additional Sidestorm on the high ground, that would have been a completely different scenario.
Yeah, agreed.
Jaeyun regathering it, trying to clear out top map, maybe clear out the remnants of this, although even coming from that high ground, that would be a scary proposition. Artosis, I think his best option is just withdraw here and make sure that Jaeyun doesn't end up taking a lot of his units out. Another High Templar looking to find a Sidestorm, a nice clear by that Zealot, got a lot of those mines out of the way, and Artosis needs to, again, this is a resource starvation match, and so every unit counts. So it's a very delicate procedure now for Artosis to sneak in, picked off the High Templar, sneak right back out, just get, yeah, those favorable, again, and I'm just going to say this a million times at this stage, favorable trades, and make sure that he doesn't end up especially not, he doesn't want to lose a lot of these Siege Tanks as he's making his way out. Also expanding top left, by the way.
Gosh, yeah, Artosis is playing so masterfully right now. It's really astounding to watch. Oh, but he gets flanked by and gets so many storms and so many tanks throughout the process.
So Siege Tanks completely obliterated, and that's exactly what Jaeyun wanted to do. He wanted to reset that Siege Tank count. And now we're at 100 supply versus 100 supply. That was a fantastic maneuver from Jaeyun. More Siege Tanks are out to replenish, but this is going to be a challenging game for either player at this stage. You've got a command center that needs to be defended top left. You still want to keep bottom right out of Jaeyun's hands. And so it's kind of, you got to put on pressure two directions, defend both locations. I think the Vultures are going to be the X factor. The Vultures and Zealots are going to be the X factor, because those are the speedy units that can get absolutely everywhere on the map and create the chaos on either side.
Yeah, this is why I think that when we talk about map balance, I think it just depends on the game state. So I think this map favors Protoss early on, but as the game goes on and both players can get in a stable position like this, especially late in the game, it makes it so hard for Protoss, because Terran doesn't need a whole lot of units to establish position in each of these bases because of the narrow chokes. Meanwhile, Protoss has to commit so much resource and so much supply when it comes to either defending or attacking whichever these bases are. So Jaeyun's in a bit of a predicament right now. He's going to establish that bottom right base, which is great, but how is he going to take down this top left base? It's going to be really difficult for him, especially since these mech units are so cost efficient at the later stages of the game. And wow, look at Artosis with the fancy drops and harassment, taking down that bottom left base, bottom right base.
I feel like this was a very clever play on Artosis' part. He pulled out the command center to have a more defensive situation at the 10 o'clock, although he has a lot of tanks that are currently not sieged. And this is a big army moving in for Jaeyun. It looks like it's able to get up to the high ground, and then redropped bottom right to take that out of his hands. If he can win this engagement, he might be able to retake top left, but I think he's going to end up losing that command center because he just didn't have those tanks at the forward siege position to support this attack.
He's running low on Zealot, so he makes it so he can't proceed with the attack. But he might. Oh gosh, Artosis is going to save that CC there, even though it's burning. But yeah, Artosis buys himself so much time to take down the bottom right base.
So now a redrop bottom right, and this is Jaeyun's last mining base. As soon as he loses these resources, he's going to be out.
Keep track of those tanks and how many kills they get with the probes.
Let's see what they're at already.
Oh
6,
my God.
8.
14 kills already in this stage of the game.
Clever maneuver both directions. Artosis also looking thin because this is his last mining base as well. But yeah, I swear this tournament has produced some incredible series up to this stage. Zealots marching in, the tanks unsieging. At the last second, are they going to get in the dropship in time? Because Zealots don't attack air. Some Vultures making their way across to harass the Dragoons, so maybe that dropship can get out. And if the Dragoons try to suicide, if they try to pick off... Oh, no, looks like they are. So Artosis redropping those siege tanks. The Dragoons trying to get in. A dropship going to be able to take out what's left. dropping a High Templar dropping Psystorm in the gap in between, leaving them very, very...
Oh,
our
so
second Psystorm?
awkward.
That
Yep,
was an
yep.
amazing bit of micro right
Yep.
there. To drop, to get the full surface and not get hit by that High Templar. Great play. Command Center has been repaired, but it's not moved up to the top left-hand corner to start mining again yet.
Meanwhile, Jaeyun's desperately trying to take that bottom right base, but Artosis is making it so hard for him.
I think Jaeyun might take this, because right now Artosis needs to take top left, but Artosis needs to deny this, and I don't know that... Well, never mind. It looks like Jaeyun's going to abandon that bottom right-hand base, and instead move all of his troops to try to stop Artosis from mining top left. And he's just very short on resources. It's just absolutely crawling as far as that resource count.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, yeah, Jaeyun's running dry, starting to run dry. Oh, and that was a huge mine hit. Oh, and that's another huge mine hit.
SCVs moving in, siege tanks behind them. Jaeyun's entire army right here, a blanket of Psystorms on the siege tank lines. Behind this, there's still a good amount of vultures. The SCV's now distance mining, able to pick off that High Templar, but not before it gets yet another Psystorm. Those storms were enormous. There's still a massive amount of troops moving up. I'm not sure where... I'm looking at the supply count. I'm like, where is Jaeyun getting this army from? But still able to push this army through, and it looks like he does not want to cede this base. More Psystorm blanketing, dropping, morphing to an Archon. This is the last stand.
This is really hard for Jaeyun. He has no zealots in his army, so he can't move off to engage the Terran army at this point. So, and Artosis just looks like he's had that critical mass of tanks at the time, and he's just not going to let Jaeyun bust this base, which proceeds to a win condition for him.
Yeah, now Artosis has got a base. He's got it running. I don't think Jaeyun's going to be able to hold that base for very long, especially with the continuous drops. Maybe if he relocates some of these troops that direction. But we have that dropship. I'm not sure if there's anything in it right this second. Not a lot of minerals left. Bottom right. Artosis is now resupplying. He has mined out, however, at that 10 o'clock base. So it is one base versus 1.5 right this second.
Yeah, and we all know what happens when Terran is on one base, Protoss is on one base. It doesn't look good for Protoss. Protoss needs a lot more resources in order to try to trade with Terran, and Jaeyun's really running dry at this point, unfortunately.
This is also a double gas base, which is going to allow some more of those siege tank. Not that Artosis is hurting for gas right this second. He really needs the minerals more than anything. But yeah, Jaeyun needs to bust this top left.
Yeah, and I just don't know how he's going to do it, especially since he's moved his tanks forward to shoot right at that narrow entrance if the Protoss is going to go down that ramp. So, yeah, Jaeyun's just running out of options quickly, and it's looking grim.
A lot of this is a pretty sizable army for Artosis. Looks like it's going to group up and potentially make its final assault bottom right. I think Jaeyun's gotten wind of it because he's starting to mirror those movements. An observer looks like it's been tracking across this edge. This might be a favorable engagement point for Jaeyun, but unless Artosis, takes that lower ramp. Sieging up to cut off the reinforcement point. This could be the final armies right here. A couple vultures sneaking through, laying some mines, a probe getting caught as it was transferring. There is a Dark Templar right there, but we have a science vessel nearby. And once again, we find Jaeyun waking his way through that funnel, which is not the best engagement point, but a lot of siege tanks not in a position, and two massive Psystorms, and the Psystorms continue pushing Artosis back.
Yeah, but Artosis might have just a little bit too much, and JY, GG's. Wow, what a game one.
Razor thin margin. I'm going to do continue play because just this base continued to run, and Jaeyun recognized he didn't have quite enough, despite the Psystorms, to push into to stop the push into bottom right. So Artosis takes the game in an epic match.
And wow, what a game.
My escape